My name is Olivia Martinez, and 20 minutes after my parents asked me about $300,000 I'd never seen, the police were knocking on our door. But let me back up to the moment everything shattered. This worthless daughter of ours has been nothing but a financial drain. My mother's voice cut through the Manhattan townhouse like broken glass. When she finally signs those papers, we'll get everything back and more. $300,000. That's what they said they'd given me. That's what they claimed I'd stolen. The crystal wine glass slipped from my fingers, exploding against the marble floor of our family dining room. Shards scattered like my world falling apart in real time. The Thanksgiving table perfectly set with our grandmother's china, flickering candles. The works suddenly felt like a courtroom. Olivia, Dad's voice was steel-wrapped in silk, his attorney's tone that I'd heard him use to destroy opponents in court. The $300,000 we transferred to your account 6 months ago. Where? Island it. I froze. Fork suspended halfway to my mouth. My throat closed up like someone was choking me. 300,000? My voice cracked like I was 14 again. What are you talking about? That's when I saw my sister Harper's face drain of all color. Her hands started shaking so violently she had to set down her champagne flute. Her eyes wide with pure terror darted between me and our parents like a trapped animal looking for an escape route. The dining room went dead silent. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, the distant hum of Manhattan traffic, the sound of my heart hammering against my ribs. "Don't play stupid with us," Mom hissed, her perfectly applied lipstick making her look like a beautiful predator. 6 months ago, Bank of America. $300,000 transferred directly to your checking account for your startup dreams. My mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I'd never received any money. My startup was funded by my own savings and a small business loan that was killing me with payments. But Harper, oh God, Harper, she looked like she was about to throw up all over Mom's prize Persian rug. I stammered, my brain scrambling to make sense of this nightmare. I never got any money from you. I would remember $300,000. Dad's eyes narrowed to slits. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen with the precision of a man who'd spent 30 years destroying people in courtrooms. Bank records don't lie, Olivia. September 15, 2:47 de l'après-midi. Transfer completed. I just smiled then, a cold, knowing smile that surprised even me. Because 20 minutes later, when the police knocked on our door with questions about financial fraud and identity theft, when Harper broke down sobbing and confessed everything, when the truth exploded like a bomb in our perfect family dinner, that's when I knew justice wouldn't come from forgiveness. It would come from watching the people who'd betrayed me face the consequences of their own greed. Before we continue with how I turned their own lies against them, I want to thank those of you who support these stories. Your contributions help me share these moments of truth with others who need to hear that betrayal doesn't have to mean defeat. Every share, every comment, every small gesture of support plants seeds of hope for someone facing their own family betrayal. This was just the beginning. The real storm was about to hit, and my sister Harper was about to learn that stealing isn't just wrong, it's criminal. The silence that followed was deafening. 23 years of my life flashed before my eyes like a movie reel stuck on repeat. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar I'd scraped together for this family that now looked at me like I was a criminal. I sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of our Thanksgiving dinner, and let my mind drift back to where it all began. God, I was so young then. I was 22 when Dad had his first heart attack. Fresh out of Columbia with my marketing degree, dreams of working for some big Madison Avenue agency, maybe traveling the world. Instead, I found myself in Mount Sinai's cardiac unit, holding Mom's hand while she sobbed over Dad's hospital bed. "We can't afford the medical bills, Olivia," she'd whispered, her voice breaking. "The insurance won't cover everything." So I did what I always did. I fixed it. I took that entry-level job at a small firm in Queens instead of the glamorous Manhattan position I'd dreamed of. 60-hour weeks, double shifts on weekends, all so I could help cover Dad's medications, his therapy, the endless stream of medical expenses that insurance called non-essential. Harper was 19 then, still in college. Still Daddy's little princess who never had to worry about anything heavier than which sorority to rush. I remember the smell of antiseptic and coffee in those hospital waiting rooms, the fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead, the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders like a lead blanket. While Harper posted Instagram photos from spring break in Cancun, I was researching cardiac rehabilitation centers and arguing with insurance companies during my lunch breaks. "You're such a good daughter, Olivia," Mom used to say, patting my hand. "I don't know what we'd do without you." For 8 years, I was their lifeline. When Harper dropped out of her master's program to find herself in Europe, who do you think paid for her plane ticket home? When she racked up $25,000 in credit card debt buying designer clothes and living in that overpriced Soho apartment, who co-signed the loan to bail her out? Me, always me. I sacrificed dating, friendships, my own dreams of starting that marketing consultancy I'd planned since college. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family gathering, I was the reliable one. The one who showed up with casseroles when Dad had his second heart attack. The one who drove Mom to her chemotherapy appointments when they found the breast cancer 3 years ago. The golden child, meanwhile, was always traveling. Always had some new boyfriend funding her lifestyle, some new opportunity that never quite worked out but required family financial support to get started. I can still see the photo from Harper's graduation, her second graduation, the one from the expensive private college she'd transferred to after flunking out of the first one. She's glowing in her cap and gown, arms around Mom and Dad, all 3 of them beaming. I'm not in that picture. I was working, covering a client presentation so I could pay for the graduation party dinner they'd insisted on at that fancy restaurant in Midtown. $250 for one meal. Money I didn't have, charged to a credit card I was still paying off. But last week, when I'd checked my bank account like I do every Sunday morning with my coffee and bagel, something had nagged at me. Not because there was extra money, God knows there never was, but because Harper had been different lately. The Instagram posts from that boutique hotel in the Hamptons, the designer handbag she'd carried to Mom's birthday dinner last month, a Birkin bag that cost more than I made in 6 months. The casual mention of investing in cryptocurrency and how well she was doing. Where was Harper getting this money? As I sat there in the wreckage of our family dinner, staring at my sister's terrified face, the pieces started clicking together like a puzzle I'd been too trusting to solve. I'd given them everything, my 20s, my 30s, my dreams, my financial security. I'd been the invisible daughter, the workhorse, the one who fixed everyone else's problems while my own life withered away in the shadows. And this accusation, this moment of betrayal was my reward. I looked at Harper, really looked at her, and saw something I'd been too blind to see before. Guilt. Not confusion, not shock at the accusation against me. Pure, unadulterated guilt. My own sister. The realization hit me like a physical blow. But instead of crumbling, instead of crying or pleading my innocence, I felt something else rising in my chest, something cold and sharp and absolutely unforgiving. They had no idea what they'd just awakened. They had no idea what they'd just awakened, but I was about to find out exactly how deep this betrayal ran. Dad's voice cut through my shock like a courtroom gavel. Let me be crystal clear here. He pulled out his reading glasses, the ones he used when reviewing contracts worth millions. 6 months ago, I transferred $300,000 to each of my daughters. $600,000 total from our family trust. My blood turned to ice water. Each of us? Olivia for her business ventures, Harper for her investment portfolio. Both transfers completed on September 15th. Same day, same time. His fingers drummed against the mahogany table. The bank has records of both transactions. I stared at Harper, watching her face cycle through expressions like a broken slot machine. Panic. Calculation. More panic. Dad. Maybe. Harper's voice cracked like thin ice. Maybe there was a banking error? These things happen with large transfers. Maybe Olivia's money got rerouted or... Harper. Mom's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Stop. But Harper was spiraling now, words tumbling out faster than her brain could filter them. Or maybe Olivia forgot? She's been so stressed with work lately. Maybe she moved the money to a different account and, I think I'd remember $300,000. The words exploded out of me louder than I intended. The dining room went silent again, but this time, I noticed something I'd missed before. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Her manicured fingers twisted her wedding ring in circles, around and around, the way she did when she was lying to her bridge club about Dad's gambling losses back in the day. Harper slumped in her chair like a deflated balloon. I don't know what to tell you, Olivia. The money was sent to both of us. Both of us. Aunt Margaret chose that moment to clear her throat from the far end of the table. Margaret, Mom's sister. The one who never missed a detail, never forgot a birthday, never let anyone get away with anything. "May I use your powder room, Linda?" she asked Mom, but her eyes were locked on mine. 5 minutes later, Margaret found me in the hallway, checking my phone for the 100th time, hoping to see some mysterious bank deposit I'd somehow overlooked. "Walk with me to the kitchen, dear," she whispered, her voice barely audible. In the kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of Thanksgiving prep, Margaret gripped my arm with surprising strength for a 70-year-old woman. "I've been watching your sister very carefully tonight," she said, her voice low and urgent, "and for the past few months, actually." My heart started hammering. "What do you mean?" "The jewelry, Olivia. That Cartier bracelet she's wearing? 30,000 minimum. I should know I priced the same one for my anniversary." Margaret's eyes were sharp as a prosecutor's. "The Europe trips, the new Audi she's driving, the designer clothes. I asked her about it last month at your mother's birthday." "What did she say?" "Cryptocurrency investments. Said she'd gotten lucky with some Bitcoin trades." Margaret's laugh was bitter. "Olivia, I've known that girl since she was in diapers. She can barely balance a checkbook, let alone make profitable crypto investments." The pieces were falling into place like dominoes, each one hitting the next with sickening clarity. "Your mother knows," Margaret continued, glancing toward the dining room. "Linda's been covering for Harper's spending for months. I've seen them whispering at family gatherings, saw Linda slip Harper an envelope at Easter. Cash, from the look of it." My hands started shaking. "They stole my money. And they're planning to blame you for it." Margaret pulled out her phone. "I recorded some of their conversation before dinner started. Listen to this." She hit play. Mom's voice came through the tiny speaker, clear as day. "Just stick to the story, Harper. Olivia's been irresponsible with money before. Everyone will believe she spent it and forgot." Harper's voice, nervous but calculating. "What if she checks her bank records? She won't think to look at archived transfers. And even if she does, we'll say she moved the money herself and blocked it from her memory. Stress-induced amnesia. It's a real thing." 43 seconds of audio. 43 seconds that proved everything. My own mother and sister, conspiring to steal my inheritance and gaslight me into believing I was losing my mind. I looked at Margaret, this 70-year-old woman who'd just handed me evidence of the most devastating betrayal of my life. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see Harper fidgeting with her stolen Cartier bracelet, Mom avoiding everyone's eyes, Dad still believing his wife and daughter were innocent victims of some banking error. I smiled then. The same cold smile from earlier, but this time it carried the weight of absolute certainty. "I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to destroy them." The words hung in the kitchen air like smoke from a fire that was just beginning to burn. But as Margaret watched my face, I felt something shift inside me. The rage, the pain, the betrayal, all of it crystallized into something much more dangerous. Cold calculation. I walked back to that dining room table like I was walking into a boardroom. Sat down, picked up my fork, took a bite of turkey that tasted like cardboard. "You're right, Dad," I said quietly. "There must be some kind of banking error. I'll call Bank of America first thing Monday morning." Harper's shoulders sagged with relief. Mom finally looked at me, her smile so fake it could have been made of plastic. "That's my sensible daughter," Dad said, patting my hand. I knew there was a logical explanation. They thought my silence meant surrender. They had no idea it meant war. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, I was sitting across from Patricia Winters at Winters & Associates, one of Manhattan's most ruthless financial fraud attorneys. The kind of woman who wore Armani suits like armor and had never lost a case involving family theft. "Show me everything," she said. I laid it out like evidence in a murder trial, bank statements proving I'd never received any transfer. Screenshots of Harper's Instagram, the Hamptons Hotel, the Michelin star restaurants, the designer shopping sprees. Margaret's 43-second recording. Even the receipt I'd found in Mom's purse for Harper's $30,000 Cartier bracelet. Patricia's eyes lit up like a shark smelling blood. Financial fraud? Wire fraud? Conspiracy? We're looking at federal crimes here, Olivia. She leaned back in her leather chair. Your sister could face 20 years. Good. Tuesday, I spent 6 hours at the bank with their fraud investigation team. Turns out, Harper had been cleverer than I'd given her credit for. She'd somehow gained access to my routing information, probably through Mom, and set up an account that would intercept any transfers meant for me. The bank manager, a nervous man with sweaty palms, kept apologizing. This type of sophisticated identity theft is becoming more common in family situations. The perpetrator often has intimate access to personal information. Wednesday, I hired a private investigator. 68-year-old ex-NYPD detective named Frank Russo, who specialized in white-collar family crimes. Within 48 hours, he'd traced every dollar of my stolen money. "Your sister's been living like a trust fund baby," Frank told me, sliding photos across his desk. "Luxury hotels, first-class flights, designer everything. She's blown through most of your 300 grand in 6 months." Thursday morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I bought a tiny digital recorder from an electronics store in Midtown, the kind spy movies use, smaller than a thumb drive, voice-activated, 20 hours of recording time. That afternoon, I had lunch with Mom at her favorite cafe in the Upper East Side. While she was in the bathroom, I slipped the recorder into the inside pocket of her Hermes handbag. "You seem better, sweetheart," Mom said when she returned, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Less stressed about this whole banking mix-up." "I'm learning to let things go," I lied smoothly. Friday night, I was home reviewing Patricia's legal strategy when my phone buzzed. A text notification from the recorder app. It had picked up voices. I plugged in my headphones and hit play. Harper's voice came through crystal clear. "Mom, I'm freaking out. What if Olivia figures it out?" "She won't," Mom replied. "Your father believes the bank story, and Olivia's always been too trusting to dig deeper. But what if she does? I mean, the money's mostly gone. The Europe trip, the jewelry, the car payments. Then we'll say you invested it for her. That you were trying to help grow her money and the investments went bad. She'll never be able to prove otherwise." A pause. Then Harper's laugh, bitter and calculating. "God, she's so pathetic. Working herself to death for this family while I'm living in luxury hotels. The best part? She actually thinks we love her." I ripped off the headphones, my hands shaking with fury. But then I smiled. That same cold smile that was becoming my signature. 16 minutes of recorded confession. Harper admitting to the theft, Mom admitting to the conspiracy, both of them laughing about my stupidity. I saved the file to 3 different cloud accounts, emailed copies to Patricia and Frank, and locked the original in my safety deposit box. They thought they were playing chess with a pawn. They didn't realize they'd been playing against the person who'd built the entire board. The game was about to end, and I was about to win everything. The game was about to end, and I was about to win everything. 2 weeks later, Christmas Eve dinner at Dad's Park Avenue penthouse. The same dining room where this nightmare had started, but this time I'd orchestrated every detail. "I'm so glad we could put all that banking confusion behind us," Mom said, adjusting the centerpiece of white roses. Harper nodded enthusiastically, her stolen Cartier bracelet catching the chandelier light. "Family is everything," Harper added, raising her wine glass. "To moving forward." I smiled and checked my watch. 8:47 p.m. Right on schedule. The doorbell rang at exactly 8:50. Dad frowned, he wasn't expecting anyone. Through the foyer, I could see Detective Martinez and Officer Chen through the glass, along with Patricia Winters in her signature black coat. "I'll get it," I said, standing slowly. "Olivia Martinez?" Detective Martinez showed his badge as I opened the door. "We have a warrant for the arrest of Harper Martinez and Linda Martinez on charges of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit financial theft." The dining room went dead silent. You could hear the crystal glasses trembling on the table. Patricia stepped forward, her briefcase clicking open. "We also have a court order to present evidence in this case." Dad's face went from confusion to horror as the officers walked into his dining room. "What is this? Olivia, what's happening?" I turned to face my family, feeling 23 years of pain crystallize into this single moment. "What's happening is justice." Patricia began laying evidence across the mahogany table like she was dealing cards in a high-stakes poker game. Bank statements, wire transfer records, screenshots of Harper's luxury Instagram posts, shopping receipts totaling over $200,000. "This is insane," Harper whispered, her face draining of color. Olivia, you can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious. I pulled out my phone and hit play on the 16-minute recording. Harper's voice filled the room. God, she's so pathetic. Working herself to death for this family while I'm living in luxury hotels. The best part? She actually thinks we love her. Dad's wine glass shattered against the floor. Mom's voice followed. Your father believes the bank story, and Olivia's always been too trusting to dig deeper. Then Harper again, laughing. The money's mostly gone. The Europe trip, the jewelry, the car payments. The recording played for what felt like hours. Every cruel word, every calculated lie, every moment of them mocking my stupidity while spending my stolen future. Dad stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. Linda, Harper, tell me this isn't real. Daniel, we can explain, Mom started. Explain what? His voice boomed through the penthouse. Explain how you stole from my daughter? Explain how you laughed about it? Harper broke down completely, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Daddy, it was a mistake. I thought the money was mine. I thought. You thought what? I stepped forward, my voice steady as steel. You thought I was too stupid to notice? Too weak to fight back? Detective Martinez moved toward Harper. Harper Martinez, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. No! Harper shrieked, backing away. Dad, don't let them. I'll pay it back. I'll make it right. With what money? I asked coldly. You spent it all on handbags and hotel rooms. As the handcuffs clicked around Harper's wrists, she looked at me with pure hatred. You vindictive bitch. How could you do this to your own sister? I leaned close enough to whisper in her ear. You didn't steal money, Harper. You stole 23 years of my life. My dreams. My future. My trust. Officer Chen read them their rights as they were led toward the door. Mom kept looking back at Dad, begging with her eyes, but he turned away like she was already dead to him. The penthouse fell silent except for the sound of Dad's ragged breathing. Patricia closed her briefcase with a sharp click. Mr. Martinez, given the circumstances, you may want to consult with your estate attorney about updating your will. Dad nodded slowly, then walked to his study. When he returned, he was carrying a thick manila folder. Olivia, he said, his voice broken but determined. I'm removing both of them from my will entirely. The penthouse, the business, the trust funds, it's all yours now. He tore the old will in half, the paper making a satisfying ripping sound. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so damn sorry I didn't see what they were doing to you. For the first time in weeks, I felt something besides rage. I felt free. They thought they were playing chess with a pawn, I said, looking out at the glittering Manhattan skyline. They never realized I was the one who'd built the entire board. Justice tastes sweeter than any revenge ever could. Justice tastes sweeter than any revenge ever could. But justice, I learned, doesn't end with handcuffs and courtroom victories. It continues in the quiet moments that follow, when the dust settles and the consequences become a daily reality. 6 months later, I was sitting in Dad's study, my study now, watching the snow fall over Central Park when Patricia called with the final update. The court has seized all remaining assets, she told me. Harper's Audi. The jewelry. Even that Cartier bracelet. Everything's being liquidated to pay restitution, but we'll only recover about 40,000 of your 300. I wasn't surprised. You can't recover money that's been spent on champagne dinners and first-class flights to nowhere. But the financial recovery was never really the point. Last week, I'd run into Mrs. Henderson from Mom's old bridge club at Whole Foods. The woman who used to gush over Mom's designer handbags and Harper's European adventures. Oh, Olivia, she'd whispered, eyes darting around like she was afraid someone might overhear. I heard about your mother and sister. Such a shame. Linda used to be so well regarded. Used to be. Past tense. Mom's name had been quietly removed from the boards of 3 different charities. Her membership at the country club was under review. The social circle she'd spent decades cultivating had evaporated like morning mist. Harper's fall was even more spectacular. The girl who once posted Instagram photos from Milan boutiques now worked the evening shift at a Macy's in Queens. I'd heard from Aunt Margaret, who'd heard from a friend, who'd seen Harper folding sweaters with the hollow look of someone whose world had completely collapsed. The other employees whisper, Margaret had told me. They all know what she did. Word travels fast in retail. The irony wasn't lost on me. Harper, who'd always looked down on people who worked regular jobs, was now living the life she'd once mocked. I could have felt satisfaction, could have gloated, could have driven to that Macy's just to watch her ring up purchases with shaking hands. Instead, I felt something unexpected: peace. The evening light filtered through the tall windows of what was now my penthouse, casting long shadows across the Persian rugs that had witnessed so much family drama. Dad had moved to Florida, saying Manhattan held too many painful memories. He called every Sunday, his voice still heavy with guilt and regret. I should have seen it, he'd say. Should have protected you better. But I didn't need protection anymore. I'd learned to protect myself. The business was thriving under my leadership. Turns out, all those years of sacrifice had taught me things Harper never learned: how to work hard, how to earn respect, how to build something real instead of just taking what others had built. I picked up the family photo that still sat on Dad's old desk, the last one taken before everything fell apart. 4 people smiling at the camera, pretending to be happy. Only one of us had actually been real. The phone rang, a blocked number. Olivia? Harper's voice was barely a whisper. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I hung up. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. Outside, the snow continued falling on Manhattan, covering everything in a blanket of white. Fresh, clean, new. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in the window seat, watching the city transform. Tomorrow I had a meeting with a nonprofit that helped victims of financial abuse. I'd decided to fund a legal aid program, helping other people who'd been betrayed by the ones they trusted most. Harper and Mom had taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty, honesty, and love that doesn't come with conditions or price tags. They'd also taught me that justice doesn't require revenge. Sometimes the best punishment is simply allowing people to live with the consequences of their own choices. As the evening settled into night, I realized something that would have surprised the broken woman from that Thanksgiving dinner 6 months ago. I was grateful. Grateful for the pain that had shown me who people really were. Grateful for the betrayal that had taught me my own strength. Grateful for the theft that had led me to build something infinitely more valuable than money. A life built on truth instead of lies. The snow kept falling and I kept watching, finally understanding that sometimes the greatest gift your enemies can give you is showing you exactly who they are. I'd believed in unconditional love. Now I believed in something better: conditional respect earned through honest actions. And that, I discovered, was worth far more than $300,000. And that, I discovered, was worth far more than $300,000. 1 year later, I stood in front of a mirror in my own boutique, adjusting the Martinez design sign that hung above the entrance. The morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating racks of clothing I'd designed myself, pieces that spoke to women who understood what it meant to rebuild from nothing. The boutique wasn't just a business. It was proof that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of your story. The insurance settlement from the fraud case had given me back $120,000 of my stolen money. Not everything, but enough. Enough to lease this space in Soho, enough to buy fabric and hire seamstresses, enough to turn 23 years of deferred dreams into something real and beautiful. My first customer had been Mrs. Chen, a 60-year-old woman whose own daughter had stolen her retirement savings. She'd heard about my story through the legal aid program I'd funded. I want to support someone who understands, she'd said, running her fingers over a navy blazer I'd designed. Someone who knows what it's like to start over. That blazer became my bestseller. Turns out, there were more women like us than I'd ever imagined. Women who'd been betrayed by family, who'd lost everything, who'd found the strength to rebuild. My boutique became their sanctuary, a place where survival was celebrated instead of pitied. The evening news had followed up on Harper and Mom's story 6 months after their sentencing. Harper had been fired from 3 retail jobs for stealing from the register. Mom lived alone in a studio apartment in Queens, her bridge club friends long gone, her reputation destroyed beyond repair. I felt no satisfaction watching their continued downfall. I felt something deeper. Understanding. Their greed had cost them everything that actually mattered: family, trust, self-respect. They'd traded love for money and ended up with neither. I'd learned 3 truths that would guide me for the rest of my life. Never underestimate someone who has given you everything they know exactly what it's worth. Greed blinds people to consequences, but justice never sleeps. Some losses can never be recovered, but truth always brings freedom. Dad visited last month, his first time back to New York since moving to Tampa. We had dinner at a small Italian place near my boutique, just the 2 of us. He looked older, more fragile, but there was peace in his eyes that hadn't been there during those final months with Mom. "I'm proud of you," he said, cutting his pasta with careful precision, "not for what you did to them, but for what you built afterward." That night, I walked him through my boutique after hours. He examined each piece with the attention he'd once given to legal briefs, nodding appreciatively at the quality, the craftsmanship, the attention to detail. "Your mother and Harper never understood," he said finally. "They thought success meant taking from others. You've shown them what it really means creating something that helps people." As I locked up the boutique that evening, I caught my reflection in the glass door. The woman staring back at me was different from the one who'd sat at that Thanksgiving table 18 months ago. Stronger, calmer, free. I'd spent my 20s and 30s believing that love meant sacrifice without boundaries, that family meant loyalty without questions, that forgiveness meant accepting betrayal with a smile. Now I knew better. Real love requires honesty. True family demands respect. And real forgiveness comes after justice, not instead of it. The city lights twinkled around me as I walked home to my apartment, a space that belonged entirely to me, filled with furniture I'd chosen and photos of people who'd earned their place in my life. I pulled out my phone and saw a missed call from an unknown number. Harper, probably, still calling from different phones, still believing she could manipulate her way back into my life. I deleted the voicemail without listening. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. The wind carried the scent of autumn leaves and possibility as I climbed the steps to my building. Tomorrow I'd meet with 3 new clients, women starting their own businesses after escaping toxic family situations. Next week, I'd speak at a conference about financial abuse among relatives. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving, building something beautiful from the ashes of their betrayal. In the end, Harper and Mom had given me the greatest gift possible. They'd shown me who I really was when everything was stripped away. Not a victim, not a martyr, not a doormat. A woman who understood that true strength comes not from enduring abuse, but from refusing to accept it. As I turned the key in my apartment door, I whispered the truth that had become my motto, my prayer, my promise to myself. Family isn't about sharing blood. It's about sharing honor. And justice is just love with boundaries. They'd thought they were stealing my future. Instead, they'd set me free to build a better one. And that, more than any revenge, was the sweetest victory of all.